Well, good afternoon. It's been, I think, a fascinating day. I feel very lucky to have had a chance to sit in on two of these sessions, of the one on the green economy and the second on the digital divide. I hope you found it very interesting too. But as we know from the morning session, this wasn't really about us so much as about the prime ministers and the representatives of the various governments who had a chance to listen to this and to come and to listen. Gather ideas that they'll be taking home so that our whole region can develop in a greener and less digitally divided way. To get a sense of what the prime ministers and other representatives have gotten out of these various sessions, now each of them has a chance to tell us what was their most vivid impression or most surprising realization and what they'll be taking home and trying to realize in their own countries. And so as not to discriminate or somehow make any invidious comparisons, we'll just start from one end and go all the way to the other. And so as the very first person, I will ask the ambassador of Norway, who's sitting in for his prime minister, who I understand was unfortunately taken ill recently, the ambassador of Norway to Latvia, Jan Grevstad. Mr. Grevstad, shortly, what were the things that you learned that you found most interesting in these sessions?
First of all, I would like to express our appreciation to the Prime Minister Dombrovskis for hosting this event, and of course also to the Prime Minister in Great Britain for taking this initiative back in 2011. We have today heard concrete and real stories from people who in different ways are building our common future. Innovation, creativity, sustainable development of society are key in this respect. It has been really inspiring, I must say. It is always hard to know what the future will bring, but what we know is that we will need new areas of growth and new ways of thinking, both in private business and in the public sector. Green growth means precisely what we find: new patterns of growth without harming joint resources and the environment. This implies a sensible and sustainable use of resources. An efficient use of the resources available is a cornerstone in the overall economic policy. Increased digitalization also marks society and the economy. This is a positive development, of course, and it contributes to growth and innovation. But it is also a challenge for the part of our population that is not capable of making use of the technological progress. We must therefore ensure that the ICT development is both democratic and including. And we have heard many examples today of how this can be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Grevstad. Prime Minister Ansip, what will you be taking home from these sessions?
Thank you. First of all, I would like to cordially thank Valdis and all the Latvians for the excellent organization of this third Northern Future Forum. All those presentations, they were really impressive presentations, and I picked up many really new ideas, but I would like to underline only two of those ideas. We were talking about energy efficiency issues. In my country, in Estonia, we are using for heating our buildings even 2 or 3 times more energy than our neighbors in Finland. They are using for heating their buildings. It's because of bad quality of buildings we still have in Estonia. We are trying to stimulate our people to renovate those buildings, to increase energy efficiency in our houses. But this process was not so successful. And today I got an idea. We have to use open data solution. Everybody wants to be on the top of all kinds of ranking lists. And today, sorry to say, we don't know how much our neighbors they are paying for their heating, how much they are paying for heating in the similar houses. So we have to open those data to create those ranking lists, to create possibilities, to make some comparisons with others. Secondly, we can say that the developments using different internet-based IT solutions in our countries, they were pretty good ones. But there are real bottlenecks when we are talking about cross-border services. For example, between our and Finnish population register, approximately 20,000 paper documents are exchanged annually. 20,000. It means 20,000 people, they have to buy airplane tickets or ferry tickets, they have to travel, they have to stay on long queues to get paper documents and to bring those paper documents to register in our neighboring country. Why they have to do that? In Estonia, we have many of different relatively small databases, and we can cross-use information through those databases. Now we prepared an enlarged X-road system which allows to use information through those databases also in some other countries. Let's find some key public services and start with those services in our Nordic region. It's not normal, according to our public opinion, to collect nowadays some kind of paper documents and to bring those paper documents to other officials. We are ready to provide, to offer this software for free. Let's start with some very concrete projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Prime Minister Thorning-Schmidt from Denmark. Denmark has a huge amount of experience with green energy, but I'm sure you learned something here as well.
I certainly did. I want to start by thanking our Latvian host and the Prime Minister. It's been excellent being here. We ate far too much and far too well. And also thank you for being in this excellent building, which I have learned today is a low-carbon building. You look at all the wood here, and this is what I've learned today. It's been very interesting, and I want to take a couple of lessons away from this and try to couple the two themes that we have discussed in our different discussion groups. First, about the green growth. There's no doubt that if you have the right regulatory framework and for long enough, you can create a green growth and you can create a sustainable green growth. And one thing that I hear again and again, and also in the discussions today, is that we not only have to discuss our energy sources, which is what we also have to discuss, but we also have to look at energy efficiency. And I'll give you a brief example. In my own country, Denmark, we have managed to, over the last 30 years, to become 80% richer over the last 80 years and produce 80% more. But we actually have not used more energy through those 30 years. I think that's an interesting figure because it actually shows that you can be energy efficient, you can make business out of being energy efficient, and you can export that energy efficiency. We heard from SMEs who are exporting to China today, and their experience is important to us because these are big new markets. Then to link to our digital discussion, issues that came about in our digital discussion is that each country are working with digital strategies. And one thing that would be interesting for all of us to take away from this meeting is how can we learn more from each individual country's digital strategy. We want to learn more about what they're doing in Estonia. We want to learn doing in other countries. And that's not only good for the individual country, it can also be good for the businesses that are necessary to develop these things. I want to take two things away from this meeting, and also two things that actually bridge the two issues we have discussed. One thing is that you can only get more green growth and a more digital society if government cooperate with companies. You can't do it alone. None of those two partners can do it alone. You need cooperation, and that goes for both issues. And the third thing I want to take away, I excuse for saying this, but one thing as a politician I need to take away is you can't move to a greener society or a more digital society without a proper regulatory framework. So the good news for politicians is that we're still needed, because these two areas, they won't see progress without a proper regulatory framework. And our challenge is to find out the right way of doing it, so we at the same time develop in these two areas and also develop good business. So this is the challenge, and this is something I take away from today's discussion.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Prime Minister Cameron unfortunately had to leave a little early, but he's left in his place very capable Representative Nick Bowles, Planning Minister, Department of Communities and Local Government. Mr. Bowles, what will you be telling Prime Minister Cameron and the British government about this?
Well, firstly, I'm very glad to hear that I'm not out of a job. Got a role to play. And it has been fantastic, Prime Minister, to be in this absolutely beautiful city, taking part in an event which I know is very important to my Prime Minister. It's one of the first things he did on becoming Prime Minister, and he has enjoyed it hugely and benefited from it, and has a great commitment to this forum. The 2 points I'd like to make is, firstly, perhaps something that is common to both of the themes we were discussing, which is that sometimes countries like Britain, which have legacy systems that are very old and very hard to change, sometimes we can learn from people perhaps who don't have quite such deeply embedded and encrusted legacy systems about how to embrace change more quickly. So I think us old and crumbly countries have something to learn from the Baltic states. The other point I'd like to make is that it was a line that came through in this morning's presentation on green growth, which is it's not sustainable if it's not profitable. And that therefore the government support for green growth has to be time limited. It has to be short term. It's to get people started. It's not to put them forever on a pipe of government money. And those, I think, are very important lessons for me to take home.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Prime Minister Dombrovskis, being host, did you have time to pay attention to all the things that were being talked about here as well?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank all the colleagues which had been... it's my phone, I apologize. Let's do it this way. First of all, I would like to thank all the colleagues which joined us here in Riga for this third Northern Future Forum. And certainly, I also had time to listen. That's what this forum is for, also for us to listen and to look for new ideas. And as regards green economy, probably there were two observations which come in mind after being in this session, that there is something which we did right and also something which we did wrong. And probably the thing which we did right also in Latvia was to concentrate on issues as regards energy efficiency. Whereas something which we did wrong was to create a subsidy system for green energy, for green economy, which is based on a business model which is subsidy dependent. Whereas what most of the experts seem to be saying that you need to create a system with a feed-in tariffs, with clear timelines, how the intensity and scale of subsidy is gradually decreasing as technology is becoming more commonplace. So now I think during the next months and years it will take also for us some quite substantial effort, legal and practical, to correct this situation and make sure that our green energy system is also economically viable. Then on digital economy, on digital divide, on digital single market, probably the key word I heard today was open. In a public procurements, going or requesting the software which is being created not being proprietary but being open source. Being open with the data, being open with use and reuse of data, because by being so you can create ways of innovation which you probably could not imagine yourself, but somebody would come up actually with very good ideas how those data can be reused and applied. And then something what Prime Minister Ansip already mentioned is also on this cross-border cooperation. And probably I would even go one step further, suggesting that it's worthwhile thinking about EU's digital identity cards, about EU-wide electronic signatures, because there's many cross-border activity going on for EU citizens, for EU businesses. And if you try to create one electronic ID system, one electronic signature system for the whole EU, it has lots of synergies in it. Instead of trying to create 27 systems and then found them incompatible, and now trying to think what to do about this. So let's hope that that kind of bold ideas, new ways of approaching things will actually also find its way into practical life. So now I think what's left, it's implementation, to make sure that we do not leave those all good ideas which we heard here somewhere lingering around, but actually make sure that there is a follow-up and a practical implementation of those ideas. Thank you.
Dombrovskis. Prime Minister Reinfeldt, what will you be following up on when you get back to Stockholm?
Well, so I had the opportunity to... Renovation works. Efficient. Okay, very efficient. Yeah, exactly. Low emissions. I had the opportunity to thank Valdis already this morning and everyone else who made this possible. I think my colleagues already have said the best pieces on green economy, so I will just bring one comment made by a British participant. She reflected on the fact that on digitalization, the best questions and the best knowledge were among those who were youngest. The more young they were, the better the questions. That's very interesting. That's not always the case when you look at society, that you actually have the deepest knowledge among the youngest. That opens for new perspectives on entrepreneurship, on who is actually shifting our world, probably than the younger and not the older. And I've seen this in the classrooms in Sweden, where you introduce iPads and work with computers, that it's very often that the pupils themselves know more than the teachers. This is an interesting way forward, I think, for the future, and very interesting for our countries, because we are actually in the part of the world where you have the highest penetration of iPads and computers, and that we are in the forefront of e-government and e-commerce. So this will reshape our thinking and reshape a lot of our markets, which I think is interesting. On that note, I think this idea of a single digital market is very important, and that we should reflect that it's not there yet. It's not functioning, and it's very much also in a country like mine, where the e-commerce now have started to actually get in a better penetration. It's very much done on a nation base, so it's not really cross-border. So we think we know what lies ahead, but we are not there yet. And once it goes cross-border, it will also shift how the market works throughout Europe, and this is extremely important to these trading countries, heavily dependent on exports, that this also is something where we are at the best, at the top of the world, when it becomes more of an e-commerce trade that will become cross-border. And it's probably the youngsters, our teenagers, that will make this happen in the future.
Prime Minister Sigurdardóttir, what will you be taking all the way back to Iceland across the sea?
First of all, I would like to thank Valdis for his great hospitality. And it is like that we have today learned about many interesting projects and initiatives that are in progress. and running in our countries to close the digital divide. In this fact and technically advanced society, there is always a danger of some of the citizens being left out or left behind in the technical area. The government in Iceland has taken a special initiative to make access to information easier for handicapped persons, blind and those with another mother tongue than Icelandic. This allows persons to listen to website texts instead of having to read it. We are fortunate in Iceland with the situation that almost all Icelanders, 95%, have access to internet and computers in 99% of Icelandic companies. This is the result of a very firm and focused information technology policy in the year 2008 to 2012 under the lead of the Prime Minister's office. We are now continuing looking, for example, to the example of the United Kingdom in providing much more access and information on public spending and opening the accounts of the state. And just few words on green growth. The Prime Minister's office is the leading agency for our green growth strategy, which is based on a parliamentary resolution and includes an investment plan for 2013 to 2015. We believe that long-term view shows that investment in green economy in harmony with nature gives a future growth and prevents costly problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Prime Minister Butkevičius, what did you learn here?
Thank you very much, dear friends, dear ladies and gentlemen. As new Prime Minister, this first forum for me was very important and useful and I think very productive, because new government of the Republic of Lithuania started to work in the middle of December last year, and our government has implemented new working group for preparing new national energy strategy, and some proposals and some suggestions from this forum will be maybe included in our new energy strategy. And I have to say that all presentations and discussions was in the very excellent level, and I think that both topics were relevant and forward-looking. And talking about digital divide, I would like to say that Lithuania is among the leaders globally regarding mobile and broadband penetration. And now we have to make extra efforts to use the existing infrastructure for creating electronic services. And we're going to continue very ambitious, some programs, especially talking about digital divide, because we are going to finish, especially in Lithuania, to complete a very important project REN2 by 2013, and we're going to cover rural areas about 98%. And then I would like to maybe stop here and to think one more time for ideas and some arguments. And finally, thank you very much, Prime Minister Valdis, for organizing this forum in very high level.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Last, but certainly not least, Finland. Unfortunately, the Prime Minister was not able to make it, but he was very ably represented by Marja Rislaki, the State Secretary of the Ministry of Employment and Economy. Ms. Rislaki, what will you be taking back to Helsinki?
Thank you very much. I would like to start by thanking Prime Minister Dombrovskis and the Latvian team for organizing this very interesting event and inviting us to beautiful Riga. So thank you very much for that. The topics of the meeting were very interesting and also very useful and very much up to date. At least I have these kind of topics every day on my table. Digital agenda or a green economy, clean tech, they are very high on the agenda of my government. And I learned here that those are also the topics that we have very much in common between the northern countries, and I think that there is room for much more cooperation between all of us to even improve our global competitiveness. And in our group, one presenter said that our region can really be a global winner, and I think that that's a very good target for all of us. Then about the digital agenda, of course, it's a favorite topic for Finland. We have talked about it many times in the EU tables and in other tables. We firmly believe that we really need to create a new industrial structure and to reduce all the obstacles we have within the European Union. That is a very important task. In our group, we discussed the e-governance, and there we have a lot to learn in Finland too. We can improve our systems, and I listened very carefully the presentation of the new system they have organized in United Kingdom. There is gov.uk, and you can enter into all government services via one portal. So that was very interesting to hear. And then you asked whether we had any surprises. One of the surprises for me was these container houses that the Danish company is exporting to China. Very interesting innovation indeed. We had a nice video shot on that, and it looks perfect. They even used the container as part of the house at the end, so it was interesting. And finally, I would like to say that Prime Minister Jyrki Katainen of Finland, he values very much this kind of forum very highly, and he wants to continue the possibility of having this kind of discussion between the governments and the private sector and research institutes. And that's why I would like to welcome you all to Finland next year to continue this discussion. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rislaki. So I guess we know where we'll be meeting next year about this time. Now we have a little more time for questions. The journalists have been very patient, and they've also been watching, I think, very carefully over the web. But perhaps now we have a chance for you to ask some questions of the Prime Ministers. Yeah, we have about 10 minutes for questions.
The Latvian daily business, Dienas business. Maybe for Mr. Reinfeldt. This NB8 plus Great Britain is very, may I say, eclectic in its attitudes towards several EU policies. And how would you describe what this group is and where it is going? What keeps it together? Thank you.
Well, we should respect the fact that not all of us are members of the European Union, but we are geographically quite close to each other. I think that we have seen, with the very troubled Central and Southern Europe, we have seen more of ambitions regarding reforms. Many of our countries have been reforming for many years, and we have from time to time have actually better growth figures than is the truth for Central and Southern Europe. We are very like-minded on trade issues, for instance, and we are very often trading with each other. So I think all of this is a foundation for meeting each other, and I think it's quite interesting that it's all from small countries to very big countries that had this forum for talking to each other like this. So that is what could be said about the forum in itself.
Thank you. Questions? Perhaps some of the other participants have some questions. Here we go. Yeah.
Mike Collier, Agence France Presse. I was interested to hear Mr. Ansip say that he picked up a new idea here about publishing heating bills, making them kind of open source. How exactly do you think that would work? Is it a case of creating a sort of league table, or is it relying on Estonians' desire to compete, to outdo each other in fuel efficiency?
As I said, we are wasting energy in Estonia, and people, they are not so keen to renovate their houses. Some elderly people, they are saying that they don't want to deal with those construction works, with those credits. Let's those who will get their flats or houses according to their last will, they will deal with those renovation works and credits. So, but this is a huge market. As I said, in Estonia, we are using 2 or 3 times more energy to heat our houses than our neighbors they are using in Finland for heating their houses. Nobody wants to be stupid. Nobody wants to be the last one in all those ranking lists. But I don't think it's possible and it's reasonable to publish all the names and their bills. It's enough when, and it will be helpful when we can compare our expenditures with, not exactly with neighbors, but with those people who have the same type of flats, who have the same type of houses. I know that that's kind of solutions. They are available in some countries already, but not in Estonia. Open data, it was useful in many areas already. And today I picked up an idea to use this very concrete solution also in Estonia. Thank you.
Question there.
Thank you very much. It's David Charter from the London Times. Moving slightly onto a broader topic, David Cameron had a very big speech on the future of the European Union not too long ago. I wondered if any Prime Minister was able to discuss this with David Cameron, who would support more fundamental reform of the European Union, and perhaps I could take this opportunity to put the question perhaps to Mr. Reinfeldt or Mr. Thorning-Schmidt, whether his ideas of countries being able to take powers back from the European Union are supported by your governments. Thank you.
Well, we have the possibility to meet with David quite often, so we have been discussing also his speech, of course. I've been Prime Minister now for 6.5 years, and I've seen many speeches, many papers showing how we could reconstruct or change European Union coming from many countries. So it's nothing new, and I think it's perfectly all right to do that, because it's a progress in the way we cooperate. We enlarge European Union. We discuss, is it efficient? Should we do things differently? It reflects the situation in the United Kingdom, and it's an initiative taken by David Cameron to make it possible for United Kingdom to stay inside European Union. That's how I view it, and I support that idea. I think it's a vital interest for my country and for all of Europe that UK remains part of the European Union. Not only that they are like-minded, it's also very important to follow through on the single market that Britain is inside when then that is being done. How this will actually be done, I know that there is a thorough work through the British EU membership, and that will be presented with results. This has been indication of a referendum in the midst of next mandate period. I think that's a British discussion. At the end, we will have to discuss what will be possible. We already have differences between our countries. Some of us are part of the euro, some are not. Some are very close to coming in. Some will probably not come in for a very long time, or maybe never. We are different when it comes to Schengen, when it comes to different parts of the cooperation. So I don't think it's that dramatic to have these kind of discussions. We should welcome that, and we should see that there are initiatives also taken by other countries.
First of all, I'd like to say that the discussion that the Brits are having about these questions about EU is perfectly legitimate. Everyone should be discussing Europe and how Europe functions. One of the things we did when we discussed the budget was also to discuss better spending and the level of the budget. And for my part, I can say we had a very good cooperation with the Brits concerning that. In terms of where we go in Europe, each country have their discussion. I can speak for my own country, and we have a discussion about how we improve Europe, of course, but also how we develop Europe. I have a very big majority in the Parliament supporting the EU as such, because it's not only my own party and my coalition, it's also the Liberal and the Conservative parties that are supporting the EU. And right now we will be discussing how will we approach the banking union, for example. So the discussion in my own country, Denmark, is perhaps slightly different from the one in the UK. But by saying that, I also want to say that of course there are areas where we cooperate very, very closely with our British friends, and the budget that we just finished in February is a very good example of that.
Thank you. Questions here, perhaps up there.
Yeah, my name is Juris Kaja from the Latvian news agency Leta, and I'm sort of addressing this to Prime Minister Dombrovskis. You talked about, on the one hand, the effective subsidies for the insulation of houses and energy efficiency, and then you talked about ineffective measures. And one of the ways in which green energy is subsidized is by this rather high tariff that is paid, the green energy component of electric bills and so forth has been under discussion in this country. Do you see a timetable for abolishing that in Latvia? Because that has been very much a contentious issue here, and there's even a major company that claims that will be one of the reasons why it could be, in a very bad financial situation, although, as we all know, that may not be the full truth.
I don't think it's a goal to abolish the system or to abolish green subsidies. The question is more on how do you properly design, and also design with clear expiration dates and properly gradually reduced aid intensities. And this is one of the mistakes which we have done in this system, that it was not set from the very beginning. And as you know, now Ministry of Economy is preparing its analysis of the situation, which is due to present in April, together with proposals on how to reduce this burden, because we cannot allow also this green component, so to say, to explode and to destroy the competitiveness of our productive industries. So it's a complicated issue. It needs to be addressed, but I'm also confident that we'll find a way to balance and to prevent this component from really exploding and becoming economically unsustainable.
Thank you, Prime Minister Dombrovskis. I'm seeing signals from the organizers that we have to start wrapping up, because I know some of our guests also are leaving fairly soon. They have to make planes. So thank you very much for attending. For the last word, I'd like to give it to Prime Minister Dombrovskis as the host to conclude.
Well, once again, I would like to thank all the prime ministers, all the delegations which made this way to Latvia to participate in this forum. I would like to thank all the experts which were talking to us and giving us a very rich food for thought. I would like to thank all the organizers which were doing the practical job for the whole thing to happen. And as our Finnish colleagues already outlined, they kindly agreed to host the next Northern Future Forum in Finland. So I do hope to see us all next year in Finland. So thank you very much and all the luck.
Thank you.